About a month ago, I found myself sitting hunched on my sofa, looking down at my parrot Jojo, breathing heavily on my knee and trying not to burst into tears right there and then. Jojo was sick, and the vet prescribed him medications for his bacterial infection. The vet reassured me that he would very likely get better, but I was still deep in fear. I would like to think that I am a pretty rational person. I'm an atheist, I believe in science, and especially well-licensed doctors. In this case, Jojo's board-certified avian vet. But when he got seriously sick for the first time in his life, I was not very scientific. I would spend hours Googling and researching his symptoms on my phone, scrolling through one research study after the other, picking up tarot decks and teaching myself based on the books, praying and doing everything that I can to reassure myself that if I do this and feed him the medications, he'll definitely get better. And then, without me really noticing, I started praying, not to anyone in particular. In fact, I basically prayed to all known deities up and down and in between, and also not in a formal way, more just like me just whispering desperate little pleas into the air, hoping that something would hear it and make it come true. Please, let Jojo make it. Let him live and recover. I'll do anything. I'll give everything I have. That night, when I started praying for Jojo, didn't just show how scared I was of the idea that I could lose him. It showed me how terrified I am of not knowing, of having zero to none control over the outcome besides staring and cuddling him with anxiety and feeding him his medication. And once he was stable and recovered enough, I started paying attention to myself and my actions, praying and doing everything we can to reassure ourselves that we are okay and this will be good in the end isn't just a me thing. A lot of us in this day and age live with constant low-level anxiety about the future, our loved ones, health, about the planet we live in, and about the people and pets we love. When we are denied an answer or could not know it through any means, many of us do what I did. We chase anything that feels like certainty, anything that promises answers and hope, whether that is religion, the occult, science, self-help, or endless doom scrolling. So the question I am beginning to wonder now that Jojo's recovered, perching on my knee happily, is what does this fear of the unknown do to us humans psychologically? And what happens when the answer we are chasing either doesn't exist or never really satisfy us? Luckily, psychologists have been long studying this phenomenon. There's actually a name for this, intolerance of uncertainty, which literally means how we humans are unable to sit with, I don't know. A recent 2023 meta-analysis by Sahib and colleagues looked at 91 different studies and found that people who score high on intolerance of uncertainty tend to rely on less than helpful emotional management strategies like avoidance and rumination, and use fewer adaptive ones like acceptance or reappraisal. This, for me, helped to explain how I acted when Jojo's health was at his worst. I did not accept that he was sick and was constantly trying to convince myself that maybe I am just overthinking while I rushed him to the vet, still praying that this was just a few bad days for him after traveling across America instead of accepting the fact that he might be very sick. This fear of the unknown feels less like a vague feeling and more like a human pattern in how we manage our emotions when life doesn't give us clear answers or give no answers at all. Another study by Kaiser and his colleagues, while working with psychiatric patients, found that when people can't stand not knowing, they don't just feel bad. They worry more to the point the brain thinks that they're in danger. That worry and fear becomes a bridge and magnifier between uncertainty and symptoms of anxiety and depression. In other words, in face of uncertainty, our brains grab onto worry as this sort of coping tool while sending wrong signals such as danger and fear to us. If I just think through every scenario and act now, maybe I can control this situation. But most of the time, that tool backfires. Instead of calming us, it traps us in this endless loop of worry, like how I kept calling Jojo's vet and making more appointments than needed, rereading his test results and treatment plan, praying and praying and praying, checking and checking and checking for reassurance over and over again because there was nothing else I could do. And all of this, it isn't just about our thoughts. A review by Emma and colleagues showed that for people high in intolerance of uncertainty, ambiguous situations like these lights up the threat-related areas of their brain, which shifts the psychological responses in their brain as if they are in literal danger. So when I say that waiting for Jojo to finally recover completely, even now as I am giving this presentation, it feels like a threat and my body wasn't exaggerating. My nervous system was treating, we don't know when he would completely recover, almost like something is terribly wrong right now and he might drop up dead, which helps to explain why I was willing to reach for any source of reassurance, even ones I don't really believe in. On the other side, researchers like Dacos have found that religious coping can be linked to better well-being, not just because religion offers people explanations for things without answers, but because it helps them create meaning and feel more capable of facing difficulty. In their work, meaning in life sits between religious coping and psychological health, suggesting what soothes us is not only certainty handed to us by religion, but the sense that what is happening to us in life, difficult or not, matters in some larger story. The work also shows that religious coping can encourage people to reinterpret stressful events and boost their confidence that they can handle them. When I looked back at myself praying over Jojo every day as an atheist, I didn't see someone who suddenly converted. I see someone borrowing a familiar ritual, a prayer, someone who's trying to interpret the future with prayers and cards, and someone who's trying to build and create this tiny blob of meaning and control in a situation that felt hopeless and out of control. There is another work that has greatly helped me to understand my own actions and mindset during that time period. In one point of her work, Jenny Odell talks about how our culture treats attention as something that always has to be productive. We were always supposed to be doing something, fixing and optimizing. When Jojo was sick, my attention felt like that description. I couldn't just sit next to him and be present and do nothing. I had to do something with my anxiety while giving his medication on time. Whether it was researching avian health, researching about his specific symptoms, saying some prayers, constantly watching over him with worry, hoping that I could speak his good health into existence. Through Odell's lens, I can see some of what I would call coping was also a refusal to be with the unknown, to be in that uncomfortable space feeling like there is nothing I can fix. This made me wonder what kinds of attention actually helps us live with uncertainty and which ones just keeps us spinning and spinning more down the cycle of worry and anxiety. I have to be honest, when I was the height of my worries, I used to think that the goal in life was to find the right answer, maybe finding the right belief system, doing the right prayers, doing the right ritual, and feeding him the right supplements would guarantee Jojo's recovery and finally make me feel safe. But the more I read and learn about the intolerance of uncertainty, and the more I replay my actions and mindsets in my head, the more I am starting to suspect that certainty isn't actually what we needed the most. What we, and especially me in that situation, needed was better ways of being with the unknown. To notice when worry and rituals are helping us to feel connected and when they're just keeping us spiraling, and choosing meaning over just seeking spiritual answers. I'm starting to see that both my atheism and my desperate prayers aren't opposites. They're both part of a human experience attempting to live in a world where we never really know what will happen to the things we love and us ourselves. Jojo, thank goodness, is still strong and healthy and still with me, biting my toes as I draft out this presentation. Although he has recovered to his pre-illness state, I still have days where I notice myself slipping back into the old habits, checking with him 5 times in set 10 minutes, doom scrolling on avian health research, sending one more little prayer to the universe just in case things go bad for him again. There is still no definite guarantee that he will be okay, even with our multiple vets saying that he looks like a healthy bird. Now, instead of only asking, will he live? I also ask myself, what am I doing with my fears right now? Am I chasing answers, or am I choosing how to live with this uncertainty? My guess is that most of us have a JoJo, someone or something we love that we can't protect completely. Hopefully yours wouldn't want to eat your toes and chase you around the apartment because you're eating something they want but cannot have. So my invitation at the end of this presentation is not to call for everyone to stop being afraid of the unknown. In fact, we should embrace our fear of the unknown because it is a part of human nature that helped us survive. But we do need to notice what we seek for in that fear, and we also need to reimagine what it might look like to build lives around it where we don't need absolute certainty to stay present, to care, and to love anyway, despite all the circumstances we cannot control in this world.